slums in Ngara, resulting in the discovery of hidden notes totaling 12,975,026 bags of marijuana and 4 cartons of rolling supplies. Additionally, 173 pieces of suspected blended drug bang and 42 cartons, each containing 200 pieces of cigarette, confiscated. 4 suspects were apprehended, including Eugene Jumba, 16 years old, and Hilary Jumba, 17 years old, who are the children of Kigunzu. Sheila YOUTHS and Teresa Wanjiru were also arrested. It was later discovered that Teresa Wanjiru, who was initially believed to be the notorious Mathe Wangara, was not the individual of interest, leading to an extended manhunt for Kigunzu. Teresa Wanjiru is suspected to be a significant drug peddler in Nairobi City. Reporting for EBN TV, I'm Emmanuel Maro.
Well, we are waiting to see what will transpire thereafter. You can imagine that a wrong lady was arrested and spent almost a week behind bars for allegations that she was the drug dealer. We do hope that all that will be substantiated. And Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua on Monday, August 21st, urged border operators to guard the subsector against infiltration by criminal gangs disguising themselves as entrepreneurs. Speaking during the launch of Nyandarua County Boda Yangu Ofisi Yangu training program in Nairobi, Gachagua asked the operators to obey the law, noting that the police officers have also been asked to work with him, or rather with them, in bringing sanity to the subsector. The Deputy President mentioned that the Kenya Kwanza government is investing in the subsector through the introduction of electric motorcycles and implementation of the Hustler Fund. Let's take a look.
The police that border riders are not criminals, they are businessmen. Hata kama biashara yao ni kidogo, ni wafanyabiashara, waheshimike na wasihangaishwe, wasisumbuliwe. Lakini pia tufuate sheria. Let us follow the traffic laws. Number 2, let us not allow border riders to be infiltrated by criminal gangs. Lazima mjuane, you know who is who, and you don't allow criminal elements within your industry, within your enterprise. Be your own policemen among yourselves. Wakora wakijificha kwenu, wanakuja kuibia watu, wanakuja kuvuja manyumba ya watu, wanachukua vibete za akina mama. Saa ile wanatafutwa, wengine ambaye hawahusiki watalaumiwa.
And the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union wants universal healthcare, which was part of the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, to be included in the bipartisan talks. The union is calling on the Ministry of Health to address the shortage of health workforce as promised in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto to improve health services delivery in the country. The union says it will stage a process, or rather protest on September 12th to petition the ministry to absorb more healthcare workers.
The state of healthcare in the country has deteriorated than ever before, because before devolution, the population we had at that point and the Kenyan population now has changed. But the number of healthcare workers, as you all know, has deteriorated.
That we promised, and the CS signed actually, because that was a conference in Brazil that was about HRH, that we were supposed to employ 12,000 healthcare workers each year. That is not the union's asking. It is what the government had committed to WHO to do, so that by 2017, we would think about implementation of universal health coverage. By now, we have not even employed the 12,000 that we were supposed to be doing annually.
Tunasimama kila wakati the same problem ndio tunaongelea. Basi mwito wetu kwa serikali ni kwamba wafungue macho na waweze kuhuzisha matatizo yale ambayo yaliyopo yanayohusikana na afya yaweze kuwekwa katika yale maongezi ambayo yanaendelea.
And Indonesia has joined Senegal and Comoros as nations whose citizens are allowed to Kenya without visa. This was commissioned by President William Ruto on Monday morning when he hosted Indonesia President Joko Widodo. Both presidents also witnessed signing of bilateral treaties, among them being the Memorandum of Understanding on oil and petroleum products, pharmaceuticals, education, edible oil and agriculture, which will give Kenya an opportunity to export at least 100,000 livestock every year.
I have informed His Excellency the President that Kenya is open for business. A significant step in this direction must remain the relaxation of and progressive abolition of visa restrictions to enter or to entry between our two nations. On our part as Kenya, we have taken the decision to extend the visa-free entry not only to holders of diplomatic and service passports, but to all holders of Indonesian passports. So our friends from Indonesia can now come to Kenya visa-free to seize an emerging opportunity towards improving the balance of trade between our two countries. The position at the moment is that we are importing close to $500 million of products of different categories from Indonesia, and we export just under $100 million of product. That speaks two things. Number one, that we have an uneven trade imbalance, and also that the scope is not what we would expect. Both those give us the two opportunities to balance our trade, but to also scale up our trade between our two countries. The instruments that have been signed here will go a long way in providing the necessary environment for us to scale up that trade.
And now taking a look on matters education, Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi has urged African countries to prioritize education reforms in order to compete globally. Mudavadi made the remarks as he lauded the role of examiners and assessors played in African countries, saying as professionals they are determined to ensure true abilities of every learner in the education system. Mudavadi said that no other profession demands for integrity, honesty and ethics like the psychometricians, educators and researchers, because they determine the fate of countries whose most crucial asset is the human resource.
Our desire is that learners are agile and ready to embrace the needs of the 21st century workplace. We therefore hope to benefit from conference discussions on leveraging ICT in assessment. While discussing the sub-theme, managing the social educational effects of higher education stakes assessment to ensure equity and fairness.
And former Mumias East Member of Parliament Benjamin Washiali has filed a report at Shianda Police Station against the current Member of Parliament Peter Salasia following allegations of misappropriation of Constituency Development Funds (CDF). While addressing the press at the police station after filing the report, Washiali stated that during a public meeting, Salasia claimed to have embezzled CDF funds while he was a Member of Parliament and demanded an apology, warning of a legal action. Well, let's take a look on what transpired.
Claiming that I stole money belonging to the people of Mumias East. To an extension, it means the committee that was also working with me were a part of this stealing. He claimed that he has documents in as far as his claim is concerned, and therefore we are challenging him to submit those documents either to the DCI or to my lawyers who are going to write him a letter demanding an apology by tomorrow. We want him to come out clearly and tell us how the money he claims for me to have stolen, and he should prove that otherwise. we are going to meet in court. The other day he was saying that that this committee stole the CDF bus. The CDF bus was donated to KMTC so that we can have the nursing students accessing medical institutions, the hospitals, like the level 4 hospital in Mumias and the general hospital in Kakamega. That was the arrangement we had with KMTC. We have bought 6 buses, which the other day he was running around. I don't know whether those are the ones he is talking about development. He had nothing to do with that development. All we are told is that he is putting up toilets in schools. The projects that were ongoing, including the laboratory in Habakaya, the laboratory in Musango, the laboratory in Bwadero, he was supposed to have put more money so that those laboratories are complete, so that they can, our students today can use those as learning facilities. He has stopped a program that we had that was at the center of our hearts, the Luche CDF sponsored students. About 150 top brains from Mumias East, coming from poor background. He stopped them, he has sent them back to the streets. And yet we had already put budget for that. That is the only item that makes me regret why I left this thing. I wish I would have just gone through the elections.
Well, and still in western part of the country, police officers from the ADIKA police station in the Shinyalu constituency are holding 3 youth believed to be part of a terrorist group known as Jeshi. Well, this group is alleged to have been tormenting villagers. In a recent incident, they attacked a resident's home in Lihovero village, leaving 2 people severely injured before being subdued by the locals, resulting in the death of 1 assailant. Victor Nzobeli with the report.
In Shinyalu constituency, a gang known as Jeshi has been frustrating villagers, and in their latest act of violence, the said group attacked a resident's home in Likovero village and injured 2 individuals. The 3 youth believed to be part of the gang have been arrested and are being held by police officers from ADIKA police station.
Area hii benye hii maneno imefanyika, pangi ndio iko hapo kwa wengi na dawa ya kulevya ndio iko hapo, imenunuliwa inauzwa hapa. Tena watu wanatokanga sehemu mbalimbali wakija kununua hapa hiyo bangi, na hiyo imekuwa muta, ni miaka, sio saa hii, na tena ni shule ya watoto, haitakikani bangi iuzwe hapo.
According to the victims, these youth were on a motorcycle and armed with crude weapons including clubs and machetes. They sought retaliation following accusations of being involved in the theft of 4 goats, 2 of which were recovered while the other 2 were reportedly slaughtered by the group.
Ndio wezi ni group ya watu wengi. Ya wengine wameshikwa 2 wako hospitali lakini wako kwa mikono ya serikali. Alafu kuna mwingine alitoroka mmoja na hao wengine tena wameua mmoja sasa. Walisema ni watu kikundi cha watu 12 kulingana vile nilikuwa nasikia ripoti asubuhi hapa. Wanajiita jeshi chinga kutoka hii area ya Lihovero, lakini hawatoki tu hapa. Wanatoka sehemu tofauti mbali. Hata wenye walikuwa hapa si wajui, sijaiona.
Apart from the fatality, the villagers also banned the motorcycles the assailants had, claiming that they were drug addicts. Shinyalu OCPD Daniel Mukumbu, contacted by phone, mentioned that the incident is under investigation. He further clarified that only 2 goats were stolen, not 4, as previously reported by the affected family.
Toka kanisa, nikakuta vijana 2 wameingia kwa poma yangu, walikuwa nataka waue mzee, lakini hawakumpata. Walipata kijana mmoja alikuwa anatoka kufunga ng'ombe, alafu wamemkata. Na pipi mwenzangu wamempiga mkono, wamemkata tena. Alikuwa anatoka kanisa, yeye aliingia mapema na mimi nilikuwa niko mbali kidogo.
The deceased body has been taken to the morgue at the referral hospital in Kakamega town. Victor Nzobeli for EBN TV.
And the Kaimosi University administration has defended itself against claims of bias and nepotism by local political leaders, saying their procurement and recruitment procedures are above board. Speaking at the university ground, the university legal officer Linet Mayavi said the procurement processes are objective and all bidders who have been unsuccessful at the institution have been given briefs on why they did not succeed. Local leaders, including Hamisi Member of Parliament Charles Gimose, have accused the university management of denying local jobs and procurement opportunities.
Tunataka mahasala waandikwe hapo kwa university, si ndio? Yeah. Na mahasala ni cleaners. Nyinyi mnasikia hata kampuni ya kufagia hapo inatoka Nakuru. Na wamefuta hata watoto wenu 7.
Na hii mambo inakuja leo sababu kazi ya Vice Chancellor imetangazwa pale. Na mimi sitaki mtu aongee ukabila kwa mambo hii. Hakuna mtu anasema fulani sijui ni kabila hii, fulani ni kabila hii. No. Hatuwezi sema ukabila, si ndio?
We are saying the university must cater for the people of this county and this country. Yes. That's what we are looking for. We are not going to fight around every day, every now and then.
There's this one narrative that keeps going around. I, as legal, have taken it even to the social media sometimes to answer. They say that the locals should be 70%. No, it is a third. As per the National Cohesion and Integration Act, it is a third of any should not be the same community. We had 218, and therefore only 73 should be from this community. And as I read, you already realize that we've surpassed that number.
Well, and in Kiambu County, more than 12 businesses were burnt down by fire in Nyambere constituency of Lari in Kiambu County last night, while the victims were left counting losses. According to those affected, they explain how they should have been informed of the tragedy, while their attempts together with other residents to extinguish the fire were in vain.
Hasa chanzo chake ni kipi? Lakini tunatarajia na tunabunia, kuna nyumba 3, kuna hoteli upande wa kushoto kwenye hii ploti ya Michael, na kuna ploti nyingine upande wangu, kuna nyumba 2, kuna moja ni hoteli na kuna nyumba nyingine nayo inapikiwa nguruwe. Kule kunatumika moto, kuna kuni, kuna makaa. Inaweza kuwa imetokea huku.
Kwa simu karibu saa 8 nikaambiwa moto imeshika. Sasa sike toka huko nikuje. Sasa ile nilikuja kitu kama saa 8 saa 9 ama saa 9 inaelekea saa 10. Sasa kukuja mimi hakuna kitu tuliokolea hata. Hiyo manyumba yote na biashara yote hakuna kitu tumeokoa hata.
Hasara imepatikana hapa ni biashara 12 zilikuwa zimewekwa hapa na hizo zote zilitekea kwa moto, na ombi letu kwa serikali yetu ya Kiambu County ambayo inaongozwa na governor ni tuwe na disaster management fund, pesa ambayo hii mikasa ya moto ikitokea tunaweza kuwapatia wananchi kitu kidogo wanaweza kujimudu kimaisha.
Well, let's now take a look on how the dailies look like. Starting with Daily Nation, stormy teachers' pay talks begin. Well, unions have rejected the up to 10% pay rise by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, SRC. Well, Kupet says Their demands, as Secretary General Akelo Misori insists on a 30 to 70% salary increment, rejects SRC's 7 to 10% pay rise, implementation of career progression guidelines, enhanced medical benefits, especially maternity, pension, review of stipends for intern teachers, that is the demands put forth by KUPPET. NAT, Secretary General Collins OU wants lowest paid teacher to secure the highest percentage pay rise. SRC has proposed a 7 to 10% raise. Opposed to demotion of primary school heads without degrees as proposed by Presidential Task Force. Well, and now, remember, that is how the Daily Nation looks like. Union-led leaders meet Teacher Service Commission officials today to reopen salary increment negotiations that, however, start in acrimony after the representatives of tutors rejected a pay rise proposed by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, insisting on much higher perks that reflect rising living costs. Remember, different unions have been urging the government that since you have increased, or rather the cost of living is going up, we also need pay rise in order to cushion us from the much pain that most Kenyans are complaining of. And now on matters dialogue, technical team has until Friday to draft agenda for Ruto-Raila dialogue. Remember, the National Dialogue Committee involving President Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga's factions has tasked the technical team to frame the issues for discussion ahead of its meeting on Friday, right there. And also healthcare workers are now, through their union, they now want pay grievances and the hiring of more health workers included in the agenda for the talks. Well, we are still waiting to see if other unions will also come in with demands for the dialogue committee and team to make sure they address certain issues. And now the standard. Basically, Ruto grows into darling of the West right there. Western governments were receptive to opposition agenda, but recent activities show they are abandoning support for their democratic ideals. And with parliament in hand of executive, the political space has drastically changed. Well, President William Ruto, Ruto's close ties with the West has unsettled the opposition, which now seems to be failing out of favor with Western countries. Well, we now see that initially we thought, or everyone thought, that the Western countries were in support of the opposition. But right now, it seems that President William Ruto has started getting favor from those countries. University workers face job losses. Well, 200, that is the number of courses that attracted less than 10 students. 200 courses attracted less than 10 students. 200, still the number of teaching staff that private universities are likely to sack in the first year of new funding model. Well, remember, the government is now funding individually. Each and every student will receive funding as scholarship and loan depending with your level of need. 7 number of students who want to take courses at Pan-African Christian University. That is the number of students who want to take courses at Park University. And 3, that is the number of students who chose to study at International Leadership University. You can imagine, as low as 3. Well, and on matter security along the Kisumu-Kericho border, no calm yet, even after Interior CS Kithure Kindiki issued directives that the government, or rather the police force, should ensure peace is restored, and each and every other leader who is involved in the march insecurity cases within the Kericho-Kisumu border will be dealt with. Still, there is no peace as the fracas is still being witnessed right there. And basically, that is how today's daily the standard looks like. And now our daily, the Star, Ruto plan to keep in touch with hustlers. Well, we've seen President William Ruto moving to different counties almost every week in a bid to put his agenda forth and reminding Kenyans of his progress in terms of fulfilling his campaign agendas or other promises right there. And the picture of the day, Moran's transition to senior warriors in Narok County. We remember that last week the county governor, Ole Ntutu, specifically noted that he is ready to support his culture, that is the Maasai culture, preserve it, because you go around the world, Kenya, one of the most popular cultures known for right here in the country is the Maasai culture. It has been able to stand out for quite a number of years, and we now see that the Unoto celebration of rite of passage right there was being held on last week on Saturday, and we do hope that the Maasai Cultural Week will be starting soon. We are waiting to see if President William Ruto will be in attendance. Remember, the Narok County Governor did put forth that he is intending to invite President William Ruto, his deputy, among other leaders, to grace the Maasai Cultural Week that is coming soon. Well, basically, that is what today's dailies look like. But we shall be here keeping you up to date with matters making headlines in our subsequent bulletins. But remember, in a few, we shall be having a discussion with our panelist, or rather with our guest today, who happens to be Kisumu Youth Senator. Kisumu County Youth Senator Kennedy Sankara will be right here for us to talk about youth and politics. What is the role of the youth in politics? Well, remember to join us in our socials at EBN TV and at SAMMY ADIKA. If you do have any question, remember you can talk to us, ask as many questions as possible. We've seen in recent, especially the 2022 general elections, young leaders were asked to step down for mature politicians, as I can put it, or rather the veteran politicians in different constituencies. Well, how did this affect the outcome in terms of the youth morale to look forward to vying for these political seats, and what can be the role of the youth? Last week we did see that Samburu County youth leaders were complaining that political leaders, or rather the politicians and those leaders they elected, have forgotten their agendas. They have all left the county, only visiting once in a while, and they have sidelined the youth, despite them having played a major role in electing them and putting them to office. And also remember that the country is made up of 75% of the youth. Then what role do we play? Well, Kennedy Sankara will be right here telling us more about what the youth can do to secure these political positions, and also what is the role of the youth in leadership. Can we wake up and also take certain leadership roles? And also, what are some of the challenges? We do understand that the perception affects who we become. We shall be right back in a few telling you more about that. Don't go too far.
Hello, praise the Lord. This is Pastor Joseph Musajawaza of Unfailing Love Ministries. This week on Victory Through the Word, it's going to be a special edition on Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. We are going to have a Q&A, question and answer session, where your questions will be answered. Make sure send in your questions early enough. Use the number that is on your screen, and we shall have those questions answered. Remember, in this life, iron sharpens iron. When you get answers and counsel from God's word, you'll be victorious and win in this life. Whatever may be bothering you that is relating to scripture, there is an answer through God's word. Make sure you tune in and tell a friend to tell a friend. Remember, Wednesday, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. this week, only on EBN television. We see you there.
Through the morning rush and the buzz, find a voice you can trust, a voice of reason, a voice of direction, and a voice of hope.
Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Live. I'm Cynthia Nanjala.
And I'm SAMMY ADIKA. Rise and shine, folks. We hope you are ready for an energizing start to your day.
Absolutely. We are here to bring you the latest headlines and trending news stories from the world of politics,
business and finance, health and lifestyle,
agriculture and sports.
So grab your coffee, sit back and get ready for a fantastic morning of engaging discussions and news segments.
Join us through our social media handles, #The Morning Live. This is Morning Live, exclusively on EBN TV.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
In a fast-paced world filled with distractions, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters: your relationship with God. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we take you on a transformative journey of building your faith, without which it's impossible to please God. A journey of introspection and discovery of who you are in Christ Jesus.
For you to walk with God, you should not crumble when you come under pressure. Kama umeokoka, sema umeokoka mpaka mbele ya president, mpaka mbele ya chief justice, mpaka mbele ya kila mtu. Hiyo ndio kuokoka ya ukweli. Kuokoka ya ukweli.
Enjoy a faith-filled environment of worship and ministry of the word every Tuesday and Thursdays from 9 a.m. with Reverend Felix Kevoy, exclusively on EBN TV.
Every Saturday from 8:30 a.m.
But we should not be afraid to interpret scripture.
Get to know the story behind the Bible. Why was it written? To whom was it written? And what was happening when it was written? Understand, get to know, learn how to properly interpret the scriptures so that you're not deceived.
In the book of Revelation, and we have started to enter into the happenings, because these are things that are going to take place hereafter.
Join Pastor Felix Kevoy and his team as they go through the different books of the Bible and give you the theological interpretation of the same.
At the very introduction of the book of Revelation, the book lays clear what is contained in here.
Every Saturday from 8:30 a.m. on The Theology Show, only on EBN, transforming your world.
With great love and joy, I especially welcome you to worship with us at Redeemed Gospel Church Buruburu. This is a true family church, a true spiritual home. Redeemed Gospel Church Buruburu is home to exuberant prayers, deep and true worship. A house of prayer that will leave you feeling refreshed. Our first service starts at 7:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. and our second service starts at 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. On Wednesdays, we have our midweek service from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and every Friday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. we have our Night of Glory. This is the church you have been looking for. This is the place for your spiritual growth and maturity. See you this Sunday and karibu sana.
Before Christ went, he told us, go out into the world, preach this gospel, and make disciples, because it is the heartbeat of God. And that's what EBN is all about. Hi, my name is Fred Njiri. Now, some of you may be wondering now, who in the world is this? While others may be saying, I've seen that guy before. True. I've been on your screens for the last almost 25 years. Well, there's more to life than just, work and stuff. And now I'm with Ecclesia Broadcasting Network. And one of the things that we are doing is ensuring that the message of the kingdom goes out, because that's the greatest commission that we've been given. Before Christ went, he told us, go out into the world, preach this gospel, and make disciples, because it is the heartbeat of God. And that's what EBN is all about. We want to make sure that as many people as possible can hear this gospel before Jesus comes. This gospel is so close to my heart because I know how important it is to leave this world knowing Christ. I've lost 3 relatives. My sister, my kid's sister, was the first to go long time ago. Then shortly afterwards, my brother, my older brother, also passed on. And I remember how the first death impacted our family. I mean, it was crazy. My dad basically never even recovered from the death of my sister. It was a long time ago. And then my brother, and then towards the end of last year, actually late last year on the 27th of December, I also lost my dad. It's not a gloom and doom story, because all of them, before they left this world, they came to the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. And so there is that assurance deep within my heart that when I also leave this world, I will find them with Jesus, because they made that important decision. The reason why we are preaching this gospel at EBN and the kind of message we are giving out, we want to make sure that as many people as possible hear this message before they go out. And that's why it's so important that we keep on giving this message every opportunity we get. We partner with different people who are giving this message of the kingdom to this world so that we can get people ready for Jesus Christ. And I am so grateful to our EBN partners who've been giving on a monthly basis, whatever monies they have, so that this gospel can reach as many people as possible and we can get them ready for the Lord. Thank you very much for making this possible. And you know what? We're still looking for more EBN partners. And if you'd like to be one of those, let's partner together and help save as many people as possible by giving them the message of our Lord Jesus Christ. You ask me, how do I do that? Well, we have a number where you have been sending on 0794 195 392. Send anything that God will move in your heart. You never know. The person who may be saved may just be your brother, or your sister for that matter, or even yourself. God bless you.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Well, good morning and welcome back to the Morning Live right here with me, SAMMY ADIKA. Well, as I told you, joining me this morning is Kennedy Sankara, Kisumu County Youth Senator. Good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
Thank you for joining us this morning for this conversation. We do understand that the bipartisan talks, or rather the dialogue between the opposition and Azimio la Umoja, is ongoing. What is your stand on the talks?
I think it's important that we acknowledge it's good for us to have a talk, but again, we must ask ourselves. Now I'm talking from a young man's perspective. Yes. Where is my interest in that bipartisan talk? I would tell you, if it were within my own powers, then I would advise for a multi-partisan talk, not a bipartisan talk. A multi-partisan talk in that all the diverse interests are going to be considered and taken into consideration, rather than having a bipartisan talk where Azimio and Kenya Kwanza come to discuss their political entrenchment agenda, as opposed to what we, the common citizenry, would wish that is tabled on the table of the negotiations. For example, look at the composition of the multi-party or bipartisan talk. Is the interest of youth well taken care of? There is no youth representation, neither from Kenya Kwanza nor from Azimio. That clearly tells you that the outcome may be beneficial, but not to everyone, but a few.
Yes. Now, talking about the bipartisan talk or the dialogue, we understand that the youth population is 75%. The issues raised, none of them includes issues to do with the youth. Talk about employment for the youth. It is a Kenya Kwanza agenda. And do you think so far the issues raised by President William Ruto, the promises, he's been able to put them to practice?
The president has been making roadside declarations. Some things you find they are not even constitutionally anchored. And even if they are anchored in the constitution, then these are devolved matters that have got clear structures on their implementation strategy. For instance, the young people compose 75% of this population, over, by the way, because that's the previous census. Now take a look of a scenario where we graduate, let's say, from the academia world, around 500,000 students from tertiary institutions annually. These people, they end up having at least 25% being employed. The rest, where do they go? And it was very unfortunate when the DP, Rigathi Gachagua, attended some graduation ceremony in the country and told the young people that there are no jobs. You know, even if we are inhuman, let's try to be Christians and human enough to give hope where there is no hope. I know there are no jobs, but you don't need to tell us in their faces. Tell us we are doing something as a government. The strategies they are bringing in place, you see, you heard the president talking about young people being taken to the Gulf countries to work. Yes. I'm telling you, the horrific experience of the few young people who've been to the Gulf would not even, it's unfathomable. And telling us that 1 million people are going to work in the Gulf, how is that beneficial to our country? That this profession of brain drain, because you find someone who has qualified well academically going to do some menial jobs. It's good because money is money. But again, where are we heading as a country? Are we really embracing the local structures that are going to work to improve our economic sustainability? Because the aim here is to detach from the West and their manipulative agenda, whether it is employment-wise, whether it is financially. So all in all, there is no framework. These are mere roadside declarations. The youth are still languishing in abject poverty. Now that the 2 kg of unga is retaining at 200, youths barely take a bite of ugali, and that is the staple food in Kenya, especially in the Lake region and Western Kenya where we come from. People, you ask somebody who has just taken a nicely fried githeri, have you taken food? No, we've just taken fried githeri. I've not eaten, because they've not taken the staple food, which is ugali. So when ugali is too expensive, a young person, I can only imagine what we're going through. It's unbearable, actually.
You've just brought up the issue to do with detaching from the West, and today's the Standard has highlighted that currently President William Ruto is growing to become a darling of the West. His agenda is we are not borrowing anymore to sustain us. Do you think, for how long do you think we can be able to sustain ourselves as a nation, pay our debts, then start borrowing within amongst ourselves?
As a country, economic sustainability is highly dependent on production. Yes. So we cannot be a consumer economy and still expect to be economically independent. Yes. We must be a producer economy, and this is what the government is not embracing. Look at a scenario or a county like Kisumu, where I come from. Nyong'o has been in government or as a governor for the last 6 years. There is no company or manufacturing company that Governor Nyong'o has put in place, yet is exiting office. If all this are we're going to behave, then where are these jobs we are talking about going to come from? We must produce. And when we talk of production, Kenya Kwanza government and their adherents will tell you they are supplying fertilizer for production of maize. You know, production is a very engaging process. It's not a one-touch thing. It's something that goes over and over, because even if it's a matter of land, agricultural production, you have to do land clearance, you have to do tilling, plowing, you have to harrow, you have to do a lot of things, and plant and top dress and harvest, irrigation, a lot of things. This is a process. So we must first ensure that we have production as our major economic source of income. When we produce, we are going to achieve sustainability aspect. When we produce, we are going to employ people. This labor we are wasting, sending to the Gulf to go and wash monster lizards, those boys and girls can really be engaged in the country to produce meaningfully for the country, not to go and wash dogs in the West, in the East, and that the president has the audacity to come and tell us in how many months' time we are going to send 1 million young people to the Gulf to go and do what? To go and wash snakes and dogs. We are not entertaining that. We are above that. So even if the president considers young people as hustlers, then there must be dignity in hustling. Yeah, it's not just a matter of hustling, being an hustler. We must hustle with dignity.
Yes.
Yes.
You've brought a very important question, or rather issue, to do with hustling. It is an agenda that President William Ruto, actually, it was his roadmap to elections, and he has sustained it all through Hustler Nation. Let's specifically talk about this. He asked people, while during his Mount Kenya visit, he asked the youth, are you ready for these jobs? Because people are importing beds from other nations. We have jobs here. You remember the affordable housing project? They're saying it's going to provide employment for the youth, a sustainable one. Now, talk to me. We have university graduates without job. Remember, we have like 4 million youth who are unemployed, heading to 5. The question is the affordable housing project or the Mujengo job going to be the best employment?
People in power, normally, government is usually composed with people without ideas. They are in power, but no ideas at all. For example, look at the composition of the youth in the country. Are we really made of Mjengo workers, all of us? Because if they're telling us that we are going to work in the construction industry, what is the framework of engagement? You know, my question, by the way, I'm always very marathon and thorough when it comes to the framework. You may propose a good piece of legislation, but again, the query is, wow, the framework of engagement, how are these young people going to secure this tender? If AGPO itself, even despite the numerous years it has been in existence, it's still a tall ladder for a young person to qualify for a tender in government institutions. And these are things that are anchored in the law. Now imagine of an ASLA roadside declaration where we are going to build affordable housings, and how are we going to employ young people to come and sell mandazi in the sites, to come and hawk uji and etc., or to do the cement mixing? Or we want to really understand how are these young people going to be employed in the affordable housing, because number one, I'm talking about production. Young people do not own retail shops where they can supply building materials. These things are owned by the who and who in this country. The young people who work in these who and whose business centers, they are working there as errand boys. They have no direct power and privilege of being a business owner. And even before we reach at business ownership, look at a business registration process in the country. It is hectic. You are going to spend 80% of the funds you are having paying government for certifications before you can even actually invest. So let aside that, how are these young people going to benefit from this affordable housing? Remember, constitutionally, affordable housing is a devolved function. When it comes to, you know, devolution has been in place almost for an anniversary, but there are believers of status quo. They really don't believe that power can be decentralized to the people to manage their own affairs. So the object of devolution was to take power to the people. Some of these functions have been devolved. It is within the prerogatives of the county governments, no national government. So when the national government comes in and tells you that we're going to do affordable housing, the framework of doing affordable housing, which counties are going to benefit, which counties are not going to benefit. So all this said and done, I don't see the meaningful engagement of the youths or meaningful gain that the young people are going to get from the affordable housing. It is the same thing that young people go through when Tom and Jerry builds their apartments. We have several skyscraping apartments in Nairobi. They've been built, and young people have always been in the construction site as the third party. They support the labor of the engineers. So you don't need to remind us of what has been happening. We know. If we are building houses, we know what is needed, who is going to do what. Just tell us there is that 1,000 for the Mjengo guy and the Fundi. We are going to come. But don't tell us like it is a job that you are going to create. You are creating what is happening. The president is telling us he's going to create jobs that someone has just offered somebody this morning. When you walk around Nairobi, construction is going on everywhere. So is that what he's going to promise? Is promising to do? I think that's a misplaced priority.
Yes. Now, let's talk about youth representation and also in terms of the political system of youth involvement. Specifically, we saw in the 2022 general elections, some youth were asked to step down while others were being supported. Well, considering where we're headed to, does the political system absorb youth in a good and positive manner?
You can not fail to be in government, fail to be in opposition, and fail to be in civil society. You must choose one. Because if you are falling in none of the above brackets, then you are let down to this country. The political system in Kenya works to favor the, let me call them the party honchos. Our politics is streamlined towards political parties. Yes. And in the political parties, there is no democracy. The party leader is the constitution, is the executive, and is everything. Yes. You know, I'm not talking from a point of imagination. Yes. You know, I was the national youth leader in C. I worked with the prime cabinet secretary as his youth leader and in Kenya Kwanza. I know I interacted with colleagues in Azimio. But currently, I am serving the civil society organization, the Linda Ugatuzi, as the National Youth President. You saw us petitioning the government on the composition of the executive or the cabinet.
Yes.
The cabinet composition do not reflect the views, scope, and imaginations of the drafters of the Constitution. The youth representation is a factor that must be looked into. We cannot keep on going to televisions, national platforms, speaking about youth and representation, and some of these things are constitutionally anchored. So if you find it hard to implement what is already in the Constitution, what policy can you formulate? Can you implement that is new? Because if something, I can't read what is on this paper, how sure are you that I can draft a paper that someone can read? So we really need to actualize the provisions of the Constitution when it comes to leadership and representation.
Yes.
The 2/3 gender rule. These are things that are still in limbo all the way 10 years since we adopted the new Constitution.
Yes.
What is the problem? So it is a deliberate attempt by the political demigods to withhold that political power, because these people fear young people as being radical, as being flexible, as being productive, and that is the end of them. So they cannot imagine in a situation where a young person is fully empowered in leadership.
Yes.
Look at the political parties and the most vocal youthful leaders in those political parties. Look at the mistreatments they undergo in the hands of the party onchos. So that clearly tells you that we are not here to be heard. We are here to be seen. That is it. And I would tell young people, stop wasting your time in these political parties. You must differentiate between being stupid, wasting time, and perseverance. You don't put your hope and strength when you know very well that nothing is going to come about. You better leave. You know, attachment is the source of suffering. You expecting too much from someone who has programmed you as a beggar. Leave those political parties. Form your own political parties. Join civil society organizations. As a young person, your responsibility in governance and leadership is not to politics. And who tells you that our responsibility as young people ends with election? In fact, in my own opinion, that is the beginning. You elect them. Then you don't go to bed with them. You stand aside and now tell them, remember you said this, remember you said this, remember you said this, you remember you said it. You have to do. There is a framework. Actually, our Constitution has not been implemented in totality. There are some vital aspects that are still missing. If today we've never recalled an elected leader because the process is as rigorous as it sounds. The other day, the deputy governor for Siaya was found to have misbehaved in office, let me put it so. When he went for impeachment sessions in Senate, he was salvaged for the purpose of solely being a Kenya Kwanza adherent in Azimio, not because the law protected him. So you can see where are we as a country when it comes to legislative processes, and that will take you back to my daily agitation. Meaningful engagement on young people in legislative processes.
Yes.
We have to be part of the formulation strategy, review strategy, implementation, because in the end, young people have always been left out and only brought in when it comes to implementation. And they're not brought in as active ions, but they are brought in as spectator ions in that entire scenario. We are there to rubber stamp things and not to actually speak our mind and opinions and be taken into consideration.
Yes, and initially we've seen youth, like last week, we saw the youth from Samburu County. They were complaining that we've been used for the longest time. We elect leaders. After they're in office, they leave office. They go on conducting their own personal business, especially members of parliament. We don't see any other promise coming down. But then we also see the youth, the young leaders we do have. For instance, Embakasi East Member of Parliament, Babu Wino. He's standing out in terms of performance. Then the question is, do we have enough mentors for the youth to take up these political positions?
The youth are their own enemies. Those young legislators you are mentioning, they are very uncomfortable with someone like Sankara trying to grow politically. Actually, they will do everything it takes to ensure that they silence you. Especially there is this community politics where I'm a Luo from Kisumu, there is a Luo from Siaya and Omabei, there is this rivalry. And those already in position with privileges, they will do everything to suppress you. That's why I would ask you, whether it's young or not young, age should not be the only thing you can offer on the table.
Yes,
what are
yes.
you bringing besides your age? Do these young people we are calling have morals of leadership? We've seen some of the names you've mentioned. There are people who should not be considered anywhere where serious leadership and representation is concerned, because their behavior do not emulate or seek to emulate the principles of the offices they are holding. And our constitution article, this chapter 6, leadership and integrity. If leadership and integrity was something to go by, 98% of parliamentarians in Kenya would be home. In fact, we will dissolve parliament today. If we were to enact provisions of leadership and integrity, everyone would go home, because we no longer have parliament. We have, today I look at how our parliament is behaving, then I see politicians behaving like investors and opportunists. People are not in parliament to speak with the representative voice. They are there to rubber stamp the executive. And in the 2010 constitution, there is the doctrine of separation of power. There is the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. The legislature is acting as a subservient arm of the executive. The president speaks from the house on the hill. The legislatures respond on top of roof cars, and they go to parliament and they rubber stamp and say, the president has said. That is not what we want to see. Now the president just made a declaration that we are going to have a unilateral pay bill. It was arbitrary and unilateral declaration that we're going to have a centralized pay bill system for all government services. How is this in connection with devolution? Devolution seeks to embrace distinctiveness, devolution of services. Now we are going to collect money, put them at the helm of in the hands of the president, and then there is politics of sycophancy. If you're in bad terms with the government, the president will not allocate you money. Is that seeking to entrench the prospects of devolution? Then that asks or brings us to the question, do we really have parliamentarians? I was saying all this to remind you that we don't have a parliament. We have a legal house recognized by the law and the people doing nothing. They go to parliament to debate over very petty issues. They stand on point of orders just to insult each other, while the president is making very arbitrary declarations that are likely to harm the people they're representing. I never saw a single parliamentarian rising tall against the presidential declaration that is to take effect. I don't know, it's 30th September or November this year. It is the Linda Ugatuzi movement that moved to court with speed, filed a petition under certificate of urgency, and we are seeking orders to squash the president's declaration because it is against the principles and practices of public finance management, the transparency, the accountability. There is no inaction, there's not in action a framework on how this money is going to be shared upon being collected. Just as the ASLA fund. You see, the government tells us that ASLA fund has been associated with the president. For one who understands how legislative processes work, ASLA fund is not appropriated by parliament. Whose money is it? If it's a private entity lender, why is it associated with the government? You are collecting. If you take ASLA fund of 500 or 700, they will deduct some percentage and save. They're telling you they're saving for you. You don't have an HIF number, you don't have an SSF number, you are being saved for. What is the framework of gaining access to your money or savings at what time? So These are legislative processes that if we had a serious parliament, they would not work. And that's why the court said the board of the Hustler Fund cannot draw salary, they cannot make any decision because they are neither here nor there. They are working from a utopian world. And this is what is likely to happen with this centralized pay bill system. Who is the supplier? Who is the supplier of that system? So all these questions must be asked and must be responded to by facts and reference, not threats and intimidations. Because some of us, as young people, we've been frustrated in this country that we no longer have anything to lose.
Yes.
Whatever comes across, we will pick it and chew it as it comes.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, let's now talk about party loyalty and how it's affecting the youth, the young people coming up. We've seen, I'll give you a good example, is Langata Member of Parliament. He's young, yes, and also young in politics. He joined the politics within a few months. We saw he was in State House, and it brought tension in Langata specifically, and also ODM. We saw him saying that his body is in Kwanza and his mind is in Azimio. Let's now take a look, an example of that. How does party loyalty affect the youth?
Our political systems have not been built on principles. Look at countries like South Africa. Look at Tanzania. Chama cha Mapinduzi, CCM, has been in power for decades, not with the same person, transitional. We've had ANC in South Africa. It is marvelous. It is producing leaders. Then come to Kenya. Politicians program young people to go and, I would tell you, to go and do very awkward things to gain political mileage. Someone, and when I was in Kenya Kwanza, someone would tell you that you go to the TV station, say this and this. You read what you've been given. The excerpt is basically abusive. But then you are promised that after that you're going to get something. Now they are taking advantage of the economic situation to salvage, to bury you politically, socially, and economically as well, because they are shifting the engagement from a meaningful engagement perspective to a tokenistic engagement perspective. Now, our political parties have not been formed with clear agenda on what they seek. Our political parties have been formulated or founded as vehicles to power. Look at Jubilee. Jubilee Party was a big party. Who would imagine that 10 years after President Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure in office, the party will die? In the same way, if we are not careful, UDA is not going to be there. Immediately, President William Ruto exits office. That is the end of UDA. I can prophesy. One day, I will come and remind you that, ADIKA, I told you on this such a date, some 5 years ago, that this party will no longer be here. Then we will form another political party, recruit more young people, more vocal, more vibrant young people, waste them, dump them in the political dustbin, pick new one. So as we do this, the who and whos, the party onchos, will be benefiting, because you ask yourself, we are the majority, but we are never organized, even to clinch a seat. The youth is used against the youth. How are we going to sort out this? So we must first ensure that the political parties are formed with a clear objective and mission. What do you want to pursue? Is it economic emancipation? Is it political emancipation or transformation or good governance? Then you stick to that. We have a political party that is transacting business. Look at the political parties. If you are asked today, just point one clear political party with a clear objective on what they are pursuing, whether it is good governance, whether it is economic emancipation, or there is none. All the politics is around Raila Odinga, William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, and the rest. We don't need a personality-based politics. We need a policy based political parties with clear framework and agenda and framework on how they are going to obtain those particular objectives.
Yes. Now, we've seen that there has been culture, or rather a trend. If you look at the leadership, initially Babu Wino once he got into office, his first term, there was some fracas he was engaged in with the then Stare Member of Parliament. Later on, we've now seen the current member, Mumias East Member of Parliament, Peter Salasya, very young and active. Is it that do you really have to look for something that can make you trend so that you now go for you get the second term, or you sustain yourself within the political framework?
Adika, you need to be correct. Don't confuse being noisy and being vibrant.
Yes.
You know, vibrancy touches on policies, on legislative processes. As a legislature, how will you gauge that I'm a member of parliament who is vibrant? You look at the bills that are proposed before the floor of the House. You look at my participation and contribution in legislative processes in the House. Then you come and say Sankara is a very active legislator. You don't gauge my vibrancy on TikTok and on Facebook, posting videos, insulting each other, then coming and making a truce and shaking hands. That is stupidity. That is not being active. And that's why I tell you, we don't have a parliament. Kinoti, the DCI emeritus, once told us that we will have the worst parliament in the history of the country. Now see, we elected Wash Gang to parliament. And that's why I'm not surprised that some of them cannot raise a voice against the president, because they are criminals in power. The moment you speak, the government will unleash its goons on you. You will be in Milimani courts today and tomorrow. And that's why people of integrity like us, we can clearly and freely speak, because I have nothing to fear, I have nothing to gain. Mine is to speak what is rightfully then. So our parliamentarians, and this is how they are nurturing young people. They are not nurturing. They are. It's how do you call? There is an economic situation in an habitat where one organism depends on the other. I've just forgotten exactly what it means, but that is where we are as a country. You walk around politicians, you think that young people around them are well paid. Those boys are suffering in silence, but they have to be there because of fear of letting go, attachment as the source of suffering, just as I told you. So we don't have a parliament of young people who really mean business, because first, and that's why it was said, he who seeks equity should go with clean hands. If you are elected cleanly, you have no historical issues to do with government. What will prevent you from being very firm against impunity? Because this government of today, the executive is the champions of impunity. It's like the presidency as a department in the executive is championing impunity. So we really need legislators to stand on their own, be very pragmatic, loud and clear on particular issues pertaining their electorates. The same thing is happening with county governments. It is very clear in the framework of devolution that the oversight role on governor is basically a primary responsibility of the MCS. But there is a very awkward scenario where the MCS are choir singing Hosanna, Hallelujah Hosanna to the governor. No one oversees the governor. The same thing has transitioned to the national government. No one oversees the executive. The executive is the parliament, is the executive. Then what are we talking about? We're talking about an imperial presidency. That is not what the drafters of the 2010 constitution had in their vision and in their mind when they were drafting the constitution. The sole role was to empower the people, politically, economically, and even socially, then to have decentralization of power, where everyone must be accountable for the actions they make. Now there is the doctrine of separation of power, interference between government arms. The executive wants to interfere with the judicial activities. The judiciary is in bed with the government. Parliament is a rubber stamp of the executive. Then who stands in for the common man? That is where the civil society organizations come in. They are neither in government nor in opposition. They are there with the law.
Yes. Now, We did see that while in Luanda, that is Ansia County, the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, issued a 30 days ultimatum to the government to make sure that the talks are successful before resuming or taking other options. The question is if we will ever go back to the so-called maandamano.
Be spoken for by the opposition. We can speak of ourselves. Don't I qualify to speak for young people? I can. So, as long as we are not part of the bipartisan talks, let it fail and we should not be part of the repercussions. Yes. The way they've left us out, let them continue with the tone. We are okay being left out of the talks. And we are equally okay being left out of Mandamano. When the Mandamano thing happened, they hyped police brutality. I was working in one of the regional hospitals in Kisumu. I was at the Jaramogi Odinga teaching and referral hospital. When the IG spoke of politicians buying dead bodies and parading them as being casualties of police brutality, I was shocked because I would walk into the morgue, right there. It's only that for the dignity of the people or those who are dead, I would not take photos and post them anywhere. Not even posting, just taking a photo of a dead person covered nicely, having the arrest, it's unethical. These are young men who had bullet wounds. These are young men who had fractures on their skull. These are people who died out of police brutality. Tell me, who the age of the Azimio bipartisan committee members died in the streets? It's us. It's people 25 and below. It's us who died. So when we can go through all these atrocities only to be left out where we can speak, that's why I'm saying we need a multi-partisan talk where I'm going to stand before the people at the Bomas of Kenya and ask both the opposition and the government questions that they deserve to respond to. Not a scenario where people are going to take Dasani water and etc. Then they take sodas and come out and do press conferences and then we go back to the trenches. Now people are suffering. When we were young, we used to see ugali being cooked and left, even for chicken and etc. Today it is 100% consumption. It is in, out. Nothing is left because even that little one is hard to afford. Why are we headed as a country? We really need to ensure that the common things, people can get access to them easily. We have a problem as a country. Governance is at Morioban. Go to health sector. I was still on the health sector. The citizens contribute NHIF, monthly remittance. The government says it doesn't have money. Who takes our money? My father has been ill for the last 8 months. I dedicated my time for him in Kisumu. I worked with him in hospitals. My surprise was I never got vital drugs from a regional facility like Jaramogi Odinga. But again, the surprise was even worse. When I walk out and get a small kiosk to the size of a pit latrine, having all the expensive drugs on the shelf, then you ask yourself, if ABCD pharmacy can afford these drugs, how come a big hospital of this caliber misses these drugs? Then it takes you back to conflicting interest. The person sitting on the procurement committee on pharmacy or pharmaceuticals is the same person operating a pharmacy outside. How would he procure drugs within, yet that is what he sells out? You would ask yourself, how? A small county, it's like telling me that Kisumu County raises more revenue than the national government. How? The math is not mathing. Huh?
Well, now let's, as I understand that time is almost out, but let's now talk about some of, the youth. What is the major problem? Because they do know. They have, or rather they can identify a problem, but over the years they have failed to take part, or rather take up their responsibility of making sure that right things are done in the right way.
Fear. Someone will tell me, Sankara, you are too young to speak against the government. You still have a future and you'll be looking for a job in in that same government. So I'm asking them. So to be employed is to be silent. Yes. I must just see dark in my face and I keep quiet because I'm looking for a job. Then how about the millions of my colleagues who cannot speak and they're not getting anything? So I would rather miss on those jobs while speaking than missing them while silent. Yes. Number two, we are disorganized. The disorganization is quite deep. How disorganized are we? This is a political mechanism sponsored by the political bigwigs. They finance, they identify the most vocal fragment in the youth fraternity. They poach them. They finance them to cause mayhem amongst themselves. Politicians can go to an extent of sponsoring blogs to entrench cyberbullying against anyone of opinion different from what they believe in. That is politics for us. So the young people, we are actually casualties of our own makings. We've refused to take the mantle and take the door or the word to the doorstep of the organizers.
Yes.
We need to organize ourselves. We must first get economic empowerment. A young person employed or self-employed earning, let's say, to a tune of 2,000 in a day, cannot go out to throw stones for no apparent reason. In as much as the democracy and good governance is concerned. But that's not to mean that now if you are working, you don't speak against what's happening. The middle class is the problem we are facing as a country. When we have poor health services in the counties, they go for private hospitals. When we have poor education services in public schools, they take their children to the private institutions. Do we really seek to solve the problem? How sure are you that your privatized student will take their children to private schools? What must be good is a public institution. So the young people must stand firm with principles, unswayed, unbowed, and not cowed into or cajoled into silence by whatever means available. You must stand for the right thing. It's better to live one day as a lion than 100 years as a sheep. Yeah, so the choice is theirs. Choose to live as a sheep, you will be running like headless chicken, left, right, and center. You choose to live as a lion, you live one day but satisfied that I am a lion, I have lived, I have spoken. Nothing comes easy. These small fears people are having, I'm not saying that you go do bad things. You can't, that's not, you can protest, but again the protest must be constitutional and legal. So you cannot keep quiet while you are having a serious problem that when you speak you can solve. The young people must recognize that they are the major segment of this population. The young people must recognize that they are the major participants and the most active segment in an electoral process. The young people must know that the power to change the leadership, governance, and structures of this country belongs to them. We have the powers. If only we decide that we are going to have a leadership that serves the interest of the people. It must not be young people. We are children of parents. Our parents are old people. They also have to be incorporated in this societal governance. We have the senior citizens whom, the government will tell you they are paying them 2,000 and that's the end of the story, or 4,000 or whatever. These people are going through serious challenges. You walk into a public health facility, you find the medic in charge. The tone to which they are addressing these old people in hospitals is not pleasing. We need to have a framework where old people, senior citizens, are going to get specialized healthcare services. Some of them are dying out of petty ignorance. If they were to be taken care of, they would live longer because we need them. We need to know what happened in the previous past during their time that we can do better. So a lot of things are in a mess, but it's never too late to do the right thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's never too late.
Yes, as we wind up, in the two positions you currently hold, as Kisumu County Youth Senator and also the chair, national chair?
Youth leader, Linda Ugatuzi movement.
Yes. In the two positions you are currently holding, what are the things you're doing to make sure that the youth are given these positions, or rather are given a chance and a listening ear in making sure that their agendas are also put forth?
Unlike political parties or political leaders, we are going to do things structured. We're going to do things with a clear framework of achieving our objectives.
Yes.
We do petitions, we do advocacy. Right now I'm here, I'm speaking to young people. I'm trying to educate them to know what they're supposed to be doing, when and how. We are working on policy drafts that we are going to petition both in parliament and even in courts. Yes. Where the government has failed to deliberately implement these things. We are going to petition them in court. But above all said and done, ours is to speak. Speak until we are heard. Because if we just sit there, then there is no sense of direction. So here I am giving the young people who care to listen direction, that you don't need to sit with impunity and watch. You are entitled to some of these things, but I would engage the young people or advise them, in as much as they may seek political emancipation, never suspend your individual political consciousness in favor of sycophancy. I would repeat this forever and ever, because that is the genesis of our problem as a nation, where young people forget what they were seeking to do. When they walk into houses of leadership, they definitely forget about who they were before they were elected. Let us remember to do our inward evaluation and analysis of what do we really stand for. If you want to make money, stop lying to people that you want to lead them. Go look for money, loans, invest in business, make money. If you can't lead, don't make business, be a businessman behind politics. Don't use politics and leadership as a shield to entrench your businesses. If you want to do trade with government, just look for a company, register, do it as any other Tom and Jerry does. If you want to really represent the people, then let us see the representative aspect in you. Uncoerced, that natural urge, then we shall say, history will vindicate you, not us, because we may not live forever. Whatever you do, it will follow you up to your grave.
Yes. Now, what will be your takeaway note with matters youth and leadership, the role of youth in leadership and governance?
The role of youth in leadership and governance is very broad and wide. I would tell the young people, do not think that when you are told or mobilized to go and vote on general election dates, then your responsibility in good governance stops there. That is the beginning. You first vote, then you possess the power of speaking. You tell them, I voted you. When I'm addressing my parliamentarian today, I would not speak to him as an electorate or a mere electorate. I will speak as a boss. I will tell him, my friend, I'm the one who elected you. You are my servant in privileged positions. Don't think that you are super smarter than us. We are the bosses struggling to make you look better because we want a smart representation. No, don't think you are the best. You are our servant. So, all this said and done, young people are still underrepresented in government sectors, all government sectors, be it leadership-wise, employment-wise, even in the security docket. The young people we're still missing. We are many during recruitments, but we are never up there. I would imagine of a scenario where a young man who has gone through proper police training, policing policy, would issue a shoot to kill orders against an armed citizen. It will never happen. So that also takes us back to some of the agitations I've been making, and this thing I believe I will consult with my seniors and look on a way to formalize it. We really need to review the Kiganjo police training and also take into consideration the police welfare. Some of these people, they are just made there as errand boys. Their welfare is none of any other person's business. So we really need to look into it, because that's why you see today police officers shoot each other like animals. You wonder whether we are in Karura Forest or in the Republic of Kenya. We must really look into it, that these are just ordinary employees like yourself and any other person working, and their welfare is very critical for efficient and seamless service delivery to the people, where the rule of law and human rights are upheld. Yeah.
Well, many thanks for joining us this morning. We've discussed a lot, but majorly, I would remind you that as a youth, you do have the power to drive change in whatever position you hold, or rather, in whatever involvement you are in. So it is time to take up the mantle, stand up, and make sure you drive change in your specific area of specialization. Well, many thanks for joining us this morning right here. This was the Morning Live. My name is SAMMY ADIKA. Do have a lovely day.